Okay, so let's look at strategy. You know, when you start thinking about video or really any form of media, if you're going to show it, you got to have a strategy to it, right? So the first part of the strategy is what? Meaning, what do you want to accomplish? Why are you creating this video? Or what kinds of impact do you want it to have on other people and on your business? Right? There has to be a reason why here. And that what looks like, you know, the purpose of our video is to, and you're going to maybe write this out formally, you know, so that I don't know how you guys feel, but I know that when I sit down and I actually think through my thoughts and I write them down, I tend to plan better than if I don't, if I just daydream. Do you guys find that to be true for yourselves?
Yes.
Because the thinking is more detailed, right, and more structured, maybe. So the purpose of our video is to streamline our customer service process. Maybe what you want to do is focus on customer service and how great you are at it. So you're going to talk about it in your video, right? Another thing could be introduce your key people in your organization. Another thing could be moving people through a sales funnel. And I'll talk about what a sales funnel is if you don't know in a couple of minutes, but I'm just kind of setting the stage still. Demonstrating how your product works. Have you ever seen that or heard of a company called Blend Tech?
Sure.
Have you ever seen their videos on YouTube? They're a crack up. They'll say, hey, you know, our blender can watch what this thing can blend. And so I saw one where they stuck an iPad down inside the blender and let it go, and they pulverized it into this aluminum dust. And this is the real deal, right? And the story is, if it can blend through an iPad, it can certainly cut your asparagus for you, right? Or make a smoothie, right? So, I mean, it's really effective. And he's done a whole series of these things. They're the weirdest things in the world, but they're really effective, you know? Who? That's the next big question. Not just what do you want to achieve, but who do you want to talk to? Who's your audience? Think about how they learn. I'm going to talk more about who in a couple of minutes too, so we'll come back on this point. So you want to answer these kinds of questions in your planning, such as what kinds of people do you want to actually watch your videos? What kinds of people, meaning who's your target market? Who's your shopper? Who's your decision maker? What kinds of problems do they have? Here's the key success point to marketing. People have problems and they're looking for solutions. You as a business have solutions looking for people with problems. Okay? So what you communicate here has to be rooted in how do I solve your problem? So to understand how do I solve your problem, I first have to understand who are you and what are you contending with and how can I help you? Right? It starts there. And then what kinds of problems do your audience members have, like I just said? Where are people when they watch your videos? Because, you know, if you know that they're watching these things from a phone in a crowded airport terminal, they're probably not going to be able to hear a lot of, dialogue just because of the situation that they're in. So it's going to have to be highly visual to make your point, right? What style of video do you think your prospects are going to respond to? Look, one key point for this is it has to be entertaining. Think about the Super Bowl. People watch the Super Bowl and a lot of them watch it because they die laughing at halftime when they see all the ads, right? Because the next day at work, you're going to stand around the water cooler with your buddies saying, hey, did you see the Pepsi spot? Did you see this spot? It's memorable. So make it entertaining as well as informative, right? And again, I'm not talking big budget CGI kind of stuff. Just make it something that people can relate to and enjoy. Okay, more about planning. What's the message? People have problems, you have solutions, you want to bridge the gap, right? So what are the perspectives that you can take on how do you bridge the gap? There can be lots of ways of doing that. You have to think about what your product is and use everything that you've ever learned about who your customers are to tell that story. Marketing is all about storytelling, right? In fact, storytelling is the oldest thing in human history. It goes all the way back to the guys in the caves putting their handprints on the walls in France, right? That's all we're doing, just telling stories. You may have to use a lot of different approaches. Who's your target audience, right? What do they like? How old are they? What can they relate to? What do they need? What are they interested in? Are you going to need one or different versions? Because if you've got several different kinds of targets, some are children, some are adults, the same story is not going to suffice for both. You're either going to be talking above somebody's head or condescending if you try to use the same story, right? So you're going to have to pitch it different ways. And that's just one example of what that means. Can you repurpose your content? Or does everything have to be fresh? Do you know what I mean by repurposing your content? If I've captured video for Steve with him slicing vegetables over a stove or something, and later on I end up doing another video that's him and his wife Patricia seated on a couch talking about their history and how they came to open the restaurant, which is one thing we do have planned. If I want to make it more visually interesting during the course of that 5 or 6 minutes that we'll do that, I might take footage that I shot before for another video, and while we're hearing them talk, the visual is going to be him cooking in the kitchen, right? So this is, I shot it for one project, but I can use it for another. And then what are your goals? Remember, why are we doing this? This goes right back to why are we here? What does success look like? And we'll come back on that later. Okay. So there's some rules to this game. Some mandatory requirements that we have to have. Your video has to have a purpose, right? What was it? What was the story that you intended to tell? And then making sure that as you plan your way through that, you always go back to the beginning, which was, what story am I really trying to? And is this taking me off on a tangent? Might be interesting and entertaining, but does it belong someplace else, for instance? Has to have a specific audience in mind, too. And the audience you're thinking about is not just who, but most importantly, who in relation to what are their problems or what are their needs, right? Has to be relevant. This goes right back to the needs thing again. Has to be valuable. What does valuable mean? Valuable means that at the end of the person watching it, they have to have walked away with a new opinion or new information, or at least positioned in a way that's more favorable in the future towards them coming a little bit closer to buying your stuff. If it didn't educate or inform or persuade or do one of those things, you missed the opportunity. Okay, something went wrong in there. So that's where value is. Has to be searchable and accessible, and that goes right back to your point a few minutes ago about why you came. You want to make sure how you get on first page, right? Best if it's under 2 minutes long. Okay. People have short attention spans. The cooking videos I do are kind of entertaining, so I can go for 5 or 6 minutes, right? People sit there and watch cooking shows all afternoon on the cooking channel or whatever it is. But 2 minutes or less is really the key. So it's all about producing great content, right? But producing great content can feel like you're juggling a lot of balls. There's so many complicated things to this, seemingly complicated, but it isn't really. Really, it's pretty straightforward planning and thinking about the people's needs, and you telling a story. That's all you're doing is telling stories so far. So it needs to educate. That's one of the balls that you're going to be juggling is, am I educating people? That comes back to your message strategy, right? Am I informing? Am I helping people with something that they didn't know before that's going to position them to feel in a way that it's going to be productive to my aims, right? Am I entertaining? Because, you know, and I'm hoping that I'm entertaining tonight, you know. I mean, I worked pretty hard on the slides and stuff so that they aren't just dry. But you want to make it fun so people will engage and pay attention. You're solving people's problems, right? The way, even if they don't buy from you today, and the chances are the first time they hear from you, they won't buy from you. But you got to think about it over the long term, meaning that you're creating a conduit and a relationship for them to ultimately buy from you. And it might be weeks or months down the road. I have a story about that. I had a client called Ted Johnson Propane. And the owner's name is a lady named Julie Johnson. And so Julie and I met at an event at Cal State Fullerton a few years ago. She gave me her card and I put her on my list. And every month I've got a newsletter that goes out. All right. So the newsletter goes out and she's been reading it every month for a year and a half. And one day I was going through the last list of opens, who opened that email that I sent out from Constant Contact, and her name was on there among other people's names, and I called and I said, hey Julie, I noticed that you've been reading my stuff and you seem to like it, and I really appreciate that. I wonder if you'd like to sit down and talk about ways that I can help you with your marketing. I didn't know it, because she was just one out of like 800 people that were getting that email every month. But she said, I've been thinking about calling you for a few months now because I really like your stuff. I had already done the sales job before I even called her and I didn't even know it. So this is what I'm talking about, is you're laying the groundwork, right? It's about helping them solve problems or see opportunities or see the world in a different way that you brought to them. And because you brought them that opportunity, they already automatically like you, right? You're a problem solver. That's cool. That's the opportunity that we have, right? And I don't care if it's YouTube or if it's email or if it's Facebook, whatever it is. This is just one alternative way to tell your story at the end of the day, okay? You want to make sure that you're promoting your products or services or your company or your issues that way, right? Now here's the thing. You ever see a television ad where at the end of watching the ad for 30 seconds, you go, I don't know who that company is, what they're selling, or what they just said. Mm-hmm. That company just blew their budget. They didn't sell anyone anything, but somehow an advertising agency came in with a bad idea and sold management on it. Don't do that. Okay? But the flip side of that coin is, and you're saying, again, I don't have that kind of a budget, but here's the great thing. We don't need those budgets anymore. Now with social media at our disposal, we are exactly on the same level competition-wise as the big guys are, because the big companies have seen the opportunity in social media, and they're all here now too. When was the last time that a little company like yours or mine had an opportunity to compete in the same way that Ford or Chevy did? Never. Never. But it's our opportunity now. That's exciting to me as a marketer, especially as a marketer who's broke. Right? Okay. You want to connect and remind. Connecting people with the idea that, okay, I've got this problem and you solve that, and I see a connection between my problem and you and the solution. That's the connection you want to make. And the reminder is having your stuff out here often enough so that, because the first time they're not going to remember you. In fact, there's a thing called the rule of 7. People have had to have seen your product or heard your name a minimum of 7 times before they're going to actually remember, and it sinks all the way through all the layers of the onion. Okay? 7 times minimum. Okay, so I was just saying that this is just one avenue, right? We're telling stories in different ways. So think about your idea. Let's say that you're a gym and your focus is helping people lose weight. Okay? So weight loss is your deal. That's your story that you have to tell. Now I want you to think about the repetition thing and the fact that lots of different people learn in many different kinds of ways. Some like to read, some like to watch. Some like to look at pictures. Some like to read 140 characters in a tweet, right? If you only tell your story with pictures, right, you've ignored everybody else out there that could still benefit from the fact that you can help them with weight loss. So what you really want to do is create your video and do your short form post and write your blog and do all of these other things so that you're touching more people, helping them all converge on the center of, oh, you're a weight loss business and you can help me. Okay? So video should be, here it is, one of the arms at the one of the things at the end of one of these arms. I kind of think of this as a wheel, and this is the hub, and these are the spokes.
Well, can you give me an example of an infographic? Is that like a
Infographic is like a lot of statistics done around a picture. You've seen these before, right?
I can't think of one in particular.
I can't either right now. They're basically statistics about all kinds of things that help tell a story. It could be
Like a top 10 list.
a top 10 list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Yeah, good.